Welcome back. Tonight, we journey once more into a time when power wasn't just drawn from the sword, but from sacred bloodlines, divine blessings, and the gravity of age-old customs. Imagine a world where your king was more than a ruler. He was a living bridge between gods and mortals. Every judgment passed, every ritual performed, every feast celebrated carried the pulse of myth. Yet now, change stirs quietly in the shadows of tradition. If tales like this resonate with you, go ahead and tap that like button. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. In the comments, tell us where you're tuning in from and share a small ritual that shapes your daily life. Whether it's the calm of morning tea, a candlelit moment at night, or something uniquely yours, drop it below. It's always powerful to see the ways we each carry tradition forward. Now, dim the lights as we begin. You were born into a world already in motion, a world shaped by names older than cities, estates that breathed with the labor of others, and stories that paced your blood closer to the divine than the common. Before you could grip a sword or speak in the public square, you felt it, the invisible weight of legacy. You are Aristoi, a descendant of the noble few who do not merely live in history, but mold it. The walls around your cradle were lined not just with wealth, but with expectation. Olive groves stretched past the horizon. Vineyards ripened under the same sun that once warmed your ancestors' backs. And every hall you walked whispered the tales of those who came before. You were protected, yes, but you were never free. Your surname opened doors, but it also closed others. Each ceremonial robe, every carved statue of a forefather reminded you must be wise, brave, and unyielding. That is your inheritance. You heard the city long before you understood it, its murmurs, its demands, the same crowds that once bowed to your family's grandeur now raised their voices, calling not your name in praise, but justice, bread, and change. You trained to sway councils with silvered words, now felt your own tongue twisted, used both to preserve tradition and to challenge the tide of unrest. Your loyalty split at the seams, torn between upholding the order that made you and answering a future that might undo you. But this wasn't just your burden. It was the essence of being Aristoi, walking the line between glory and guilt, privilege and responsibility. Behind closed doors, your life was shaped by more than leisure. You balanced drills of battle with the weight of rhetoric, learned to lead armies and debates alike. You weren't just raised for comfort, you were bred for conflict, both of the sword and of the soul. You stand atop the ladder of society, not because you climbed it, but because you were born above its rungs. Your family is part of an elite, the Aristoi, those who control not only the best lands, but the very rhythm of civic life. Your estate is no modest dwelling, but a sprawling domain of olive trees, vineyards, fertile fields, and sacred groves. Your wealth is not tucked in coin purses, but seated in the soil, harvested in silence by hands that do not bear your name. From your earliest years, you were reminded this land feeds not only your household, but your power. You learned how every root and vine feeds a system in which artists, tenants, soldiers, and servants depend on your favor. In places like Athens, Sparta, and Rome, your family's position is entrenched. You are not merely rich, you are necessary. The very city breathes through you. Yet, you cannot rest on your gold alone. You must prove again and again that you deserve it. That is why your tutors filled your head with tales of divine blood and ancient heroes. You are taught that your great-grandmother was descended from a god, that your house traces its line to Venus, to founders carved in myth. These aren't bedtime stories. They are your armor. When you enter a hall, people stand, not for you, but for what you represent. You are a living relic, expected to embody wisdom, courage, and dignity. Your upbringing reflects this. You are trained in battle as much as in law. Your marriage is not for love, but for strategy. Each union is carefully arranged to tie your lineage tighter to power, to reinforce what the world believes, that you were born to rule. You carry scrolls with your genealogy, polish seals that bear your crest, and pass walls hung with masks of your dead, those stern-faced images staring silently from the shadows. At funerals, actors wear their likeness, and the crowd remembers not just the deceased, but the weight of your name. Even your celebrations are different. You do not attend festivals. You lead them. In Rome, the purple stripe on your toga isn't fashion. It is authority. In your halls, only family may enter the private temple, where rituals pass through bloodlines. Visitors know they are guests, not just in a house, but in a legacy. This legacy defines everything. The city turns to you in times of celebration, and more so in times of crisis. They believe in your blood, in your name, in the centuries that placed you here, and whether you live up to it or not, they will look to you. You did not gain your land, you inherited it, and with it came dominion over valleys, plains, and the people who dwell there. In cities like Athens and Corinth, your holdings are the most fertile and well-placed, beside rivers, along the coast, near the roads that carry trade and armies alike. These lands do not just feed your house, they sustain your power. To keep them, you navigate a delicate dance of laws, marriages, and control. Land may pass to your sons, but it must never scatter. You defend your borders with private militias, loyal retainers, and walls built high enough to keep out both thieves and ambition. Tenant farmers work your soil and give you a portion of every harvest. Sharecroppers bind themselves to your mercy in exchange for shelter and seed. Even the smallest act of generosity from you, granting a plot, forgiving a debt, carries a cost in loyalty. Your wealth is more than comfort. It is leverage. With it, you fund sacred festivals, sponsor plays that move the crowd to tears, and offer sacrifices that soothe the gods and remind the people who keeps the divine on their side. You rebuild temples, not just to honor the gods, but to inscribe your name in marble. Even your generosity is a form of power. You are also a soldier, but a particular kind. You ride into battle, not on foot, but on horseback, wearing the best armor money can buy. You serve as cavalry because you can afford it, and that buys you not just glory, but votes. In times of war, your family supplies the city's finest generals and its coin. In return, you earn influence that echoes in every court and council chamber. You are not merely part of the government. You are the government. In oligarchies, like those of Corinth or Thebes, only men like you can make laws. In Athens, before reforms, no man without land like yours could become archon. In Rome, your kind, partitions fill the Senate, shape legislation, and decide peace or war. You stand at the crossroads of power, land, law, lineage, and the legacy of the gods. But you also stand at its edge, because even the strongest stone can crack. And when the people rise, or a rival family hungers for your place, it is not your wealth alone that will save you, but the choices you make, the wisdom you wield, and the strength with which you carry the name you did not choose. You see the influence of your class in every corner of the city. Through carefully arranged patronage, you place allies in key positions, magistrates, generals, priests, land jobs, even courtrooms shift with a word from you. When you forge alliances with priestly houses, it's not just for piety, it's for power. With temple support behind you, your voice echoes louder in matters of war, taxes, and trade. One vote from your estate might weigh as much as dozens from common citizens. You've seen how this works firsthand. In Athens, during the rule of the 30 tyrants, you watched as noble families from the grain-rich plains were handed the reins of the city. In Corinth, councils were drawn from just a few noble lines, yours among them, deciding harbor tolls and military funding to protect lands like yours. Power flows through land ownership, and your family holds the most fertile. But keeping power demands more than just land. You've helped draft laws that block redistribution efforts, arranged strategic marriages, and, when the streets rumble with unrest, paid for guards to protect your villa. It's not just about what you own, but how you secure it through wealth, faith, arms, and law. You don't just influence policy, you are the policy. Your influence become self-sustaining. You sponsor festivals, underwrite temples, and fund public works, not out of generosity, but strategy. These gifts cement your name in the mouths of the people and the prayers of the priests. You become indispensable to city life, the silent architect of rituals, harvest, and celebrations. Your wealth underwrites the rhythm of the state. Your role in war cements your authority. The cavalry saddle is yours because only you can afford the horse. The shield wall trusts your position because your armor gleams with inherited silver. When threat looms, your estate provides not just food or coin, but leadership. Generals rise from your bloodline. Soldiers swear to your family, not just in the city. Loyalty is forged as much in the fields as in the barracks. But your control is fragile, less fortress than tightrope. Rain pounds the arcades as you step through the shattered gates of your estate. The banners above, once symbols of pride, now hang limp and blackened. Below, the plaza seethes with unrest. Artisans, students, even guards, gathered under flickering torchlight. At their center, a former scribe calls for justice and bread. You hear your own training in his voice, cadence, phrasing, appeal. It's uncanny. The same tools that once won you praise now sharpen rebellion. The words feel like shadows of your own, twisted to cut instead of inspire. Your father calls from the balcony, voice rigid with tradition and command. His Latin echoes through the plaza like a hymn of order. You see his resolve, but you also see the fear behind it. Your cousin Adrian presses a sword into your hand. You remember this grip. How many afternoons you spent drilling, parrying, training for battle, never imagining it would be turned inward toward your own city. They look to you now from both sides. The guards, loyal but weary. The crowd, angry but desperate. They call your name. These are people you grew up with, children of servants who once watched you train. Your noble blood urges caution. Your conscience whispers action. You walk forward, every step an increasing risk. You raise your voice. You draw from your education the clarity, the strength, the control. You offer peace, open the stores in exchange for calm. You speak to their hardship, not as a lord above, but as someone who understands. You feel the weight of every word. Some cheer, others scowl. Your kin will call you traitor. The rebels will call you tool. But the torches dim. The crowds shift. Grain flows out. And you, raised to rule, trained to fight, stand between the world you were born into and the one rising before your eyes. You've chosen the harder road, not victory, but balance, not power, but peace. And in that uncertain twilight, you realize this is the true test of nobility. But peace is never simple. In the days that follow, your name is carved into tavern walls, and temple benches, sometimes in praise, sometimes in fury. In the assembly, they debate whether you're a hero or a coward. Your father stops speaking to you. Your cousin disappears to the northern frontier, blade still bloodied from the riots you diffused with words. Yet the markets reopen, bakers grind flour once hoarded, fishermen return to the harbor, children laugh again in the alleyways that once echoed with marching boots. And though your family's estate bears scorch marks and shame, it still stands because you chose not to raise the city to save your pride. At night, you lie awake beneath the cracked ceiling of your childhood room. The sword Adrian gave you leans against the wall, untouched since that evening. You wonder if restraint will be remembered, if your compromise will outlive the next war or the next famine. You've learned that even noble intentions can feel like betrayal, depending on where one stands. But you also see the long game now. True nobility isn't just about ancestry or eloquence or even valor. It's about what you protect when everything is at risk. Your legacy may not be gilded in triumph, but perhaps, just perhaps, it will be rooted in endurance. You begin to write, not proclamations, but letters to former rivals, to allies who wavered, to young nobles still in training. You teach them what wasn't taught to you, how to bend without breaking, how to listen without yielding power, how to wield both sword and silence with purpose. The world you knew is fading, and a new one stirs. Whether it will be better is unclear, but for now, in this fragile moment, you've carved a space between tyranny and chaos. And if that is not nobility, then nothing truly is.